Yeah. And while we're getting ready, just a couple things we have coming up. I'll just fill you guys in. We have a January workshop coming up. We don't have the link for that yet, but it will be coming to your email inbox soon, probably all over the socials. But it will be a goal setting workshop on January the 5th, I believe is correct. The first Sunday in January, it'll be a goal setting workshop. There'll be like a workbook. We'll take you guys through all of it. It'll be really fun and actionable. We did this last year. It was great. We had so many women give us great feedback. So we're going to do it again. It'll be new and improved. And then we have our 7-day glute challenge starting January 13th. So that will be our January challenge. I will actually put the link in the chat. So we do have the sign up there if you want to join in that. That's always a good time as well. And we're kicking off January with a bang over here in Boss Bitch Radio for sure. I'm excited.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That's their New Year's resolutions, but never actually puts a plan in place to take action.
Yes.
And the resolutions are great and they'll stay on that piece of paper unless you put an action to it, an action plan. And so that's what this goal setting workshop is all about. So you guys stay tuned for that because we want you to reach your goals. 2025 is going to be different, guys. This year is going to be different. Let's do it. Yes, ma'am.
I love it.
Yeah, I finally found it. I just have to figure out which one to put in here. How many of you guys are like happy with your body right now and happy like, or what things would you, what are like the top things that you would like to change? Like what prompted you to be here today?
Really great question. Yeah. So in the chat box, if you can take a second and just chime in, or you can send it to me anonymously if you want to be a little more demure and let me know what prompted you to be here today. If there's something that you're struggling with or unsettled with or unhappy with, hormonal wise, body wise, all that fun stuff, you know, she's going to dive into some really great stuff today. All right. We've got building muscle. That's a common theme amongst my bitches, my boss bitches here.
Building muscle. Okay.
Is that it? Just Amanda? iPhone 8. Recomposition. Balance hormones. Managing hormones in perimenopause. WTF is happening, right?
Lower sex drive. Yeah, that's a thing.
Low energy. Struggling to get gains in general. Yeah. Suffering from all the menopause symptoms.
Yeah, menopause,
hormone replacement therapy. Love it, says Amy. I'm with you, Amy.
Awesome. Am I allowed to share screen now?
Yes, ma'am. All right, you guys. So for those of you that are just rolling in, we have Dr. Doyle today. She's going to go over all things biohacking hormones. And by all means, we like to encourage the fact that this is more of a workshop setting anytime we do coffee with coach. So it is interaction. You know, we want to see you asking questions because it is useless if you leave without anything, answered that you have some burning questions around. So feel free as she's speaking to plug things in the chat. We'll go back and cover, the questions in there and we'll make sure that we get everybody's questions answered. So I will let you take the floor, Dr. Doyle. Maybe you want to give everybody a little intro as to your background and then we can dive in. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's in my slide.
Oh, sweet. Perfect. I'll mute myself.
Okay, cool. So, first of all, thanks guys for making it here on your Sunday morning. And so I say this is the most important information you'll hear because there's a lot of stuff that, where do we even start? I'll get into all the details, but most of research is done on men when it comes to heart disease, Alzheimer's, and all this other stuff. And then we know that our doctors have no idea what to do with us. I've had friends, coworkers leave the doctor crying. And that's how I got into this niche. I worked in critical care and then I moved into functional medicine. And this became my niche because I felt like this is where help was most needed. So this is 5 steps to mastering perimenopause or menopause and preventing Alzheimer's. So you may not have connected those two, but I'm going to give you some startling information. And, the reason why I'm here on a Sunday morning is because I want to get the message out there. And I just like, I'm on podcasts all the time just because I want people to know, like, you've got to pay attention now. You can't afford to wait. Like people don't invest in themselves, or if they do, there's just not enough knowledge out there. So that's my why. Here I am. Like I said, I originally worked in critical care. I worked at Valley Hospital in Las Vegas, did a contract there. And I'm in Miami Beach. I worked at Mount Sinai. I worked at Aventura, which was a trauma, level 1 trauma, level 2 trauma hospital. And I loved that. It was exciting. But, I also worked in oncology. And when I worked in oncology, I was like, that's when I really saw like people, what happens when you don't have enough vitamins, minerals, we have poor nutrition. And then if you want to see the epitome of big pharma, like just destroying a human body, spend a day in the oncology unit, and then the poor cancer patients, they feel like a leper, like nobody wants to go around them, as if cancer is contagious. And it's just, and I watched it bankrupt millionaires. It was really motivating to me. I was like, there's, if I had $1 for every time someone was like, how can they send me home? They're just giving me more prescriptions. Isn't there something else I can do? And it's like, I know there's got to be something else, but I wasn't trained. So I started looking around for functional medicine programs, and that's how led me there. And then I, took it a step farther and got the diplomat with the American Clinical Board of Nutrition, because I really wanted to master this stuff. Okay, so yeah, you guys have already located the chat feature. We already talked about the number 1 problem. Okay, cool. Okay, so my goal for our time together today, and your time when you re-listen to this recorded session, just don't let your menopausal symptoms hold you back anymore. I'm going to show you how to get going on this and take there's 5 actionable steps that you can do to get better. Perimenopause and menopause affect women as early as their late 30s and into their mid 50s and beyond, right? So there's a paper that came out, well, it's not recent, but it looked at how different races are affected differently by menopause. And what's striking is like African American women can go through menopause symptoms for almost 10 years. Whereas an Asian American, or Asian in general, would be more like 6 years. I think white people are like 7 or 8 years. Latinas are like maybe 8 or 9 years. So, why does this affect different races differently? One of the thoughts is vitamin D, right? African American people have more melanin in their skin, and it's harder for their body to make vitamin D. Vitamin D is really important for a multitude of chemical reactions in our body. But like I say, for women, weight loss is usually why women come to me, because that's like, the loss of libido. Okay, maybe they can kind of fake it. Their hair's thinning. Okay, well, they can get Nutrafol, or there's other symptoms. But once you start keep putting on weight, and it's like you're working out, you're changing your diet, you're fasting, you're starving, you're barely eating, you're doing an hour of cardio, and it's like, what WTF is going on? Like, why can't I button my pants? Like, that would be the thing that most women come to me for. They're like, I'm not buying another pair of pants. Like, no, I'm not. And so I'd say, women, your weight loss is like 50% hormones, 30% diet, and 20% exercise. Like, your hormones, you can work out as much as you can work with Diane, you can do all that glute stuff. But if your cortisol is out of whack, your estrogen and progesterone are not functioning properly, are being produced properly, you're going to be really frustrated. Symptoms for us include weight gain, fatigue, insomnia. Insomnia is another big one too that hits women. Hair loss, poor muscle tone, like you're saying, you just can't build muscle. What's going on? Pain during sex, brain fog. That's another huge one that affects women professionally. You're in your 50s, you would like to step into your own, but your brain fog won't let you. You're struggling to complete tasks, you're apologizing to your coworkers. Like, it's like very noticeable. Decreased libido, just overall poor motivation. Like, it just zaps you. actual depression and anxiety. So the amount of pharmaceuticals like Xanax and Cymbalta and Lexapro that get prescribed to women dramatically increases during this time because doctors don't know what to do. They're like, oh yeah, sounds like you have depression. Sounds like you have anxiety. Here, take this Xanax. That'll help you sleep. Like I've got one of my coworkers I used to work with at one of the hospitals here, and she told me she's taking 1 to 2 grams of Xanax a night to sleep. Like that's enough to I couldn't imagine. That is a really high dose. Like she'll take a gram of Xanax and still not be able to sleep. I said, well, did your doctor look at your hormones at all? No, nope, never thought of it, and like that's a lot of Xanax. Benzodiazepines are not without risk, right? You take them every day and then go cold turkey, especially at that high of a dose, like say you lose your insurance and you can't afford it that month, like you could actually have a seizure. Like these drugs are not without consequence. And I don't think that women are getting informed consent. So if you've had any prescription antidepressants, and you don't want to admit it, but I'd say you can take this opportunity and put it in there if you want to talk about it. Be like, well, okay, I was given this. I've been on it this many years. What else can I do? It's up to you. Most medical doctors and even OBGYNs were just not trained in medical school on how to manage women through menopause. And most of the funding goes to fertility and babies, or if they were trained, it's usually through conferences. We have to do major continuing education on an annual or biannual basis. They may know what's happening to your age, but or happening to you as you age, but the only thing they're trained to do are the like pharmaceutical options, whatever they learned at a conference or whatever they learned at continuing education. The reality is everything that's happening in your body is normal and natural, and it can be helped naturally without prescriptions. There's a time and place for everything, but I always encourage women to start naturally. Your body's full of systems and mechanisms that will repair and rejuvenate themselves, but they can't do it without the right triggers and without the right tools. That, right? The more you exercise, the better your odds are, right? So it's the same thing with nutrition and vitamins and minerals and herbs. So let's get to these 5 steps. Okay, so number 1, clean up your diet. I have a book called the 7X Method. It's probably free to download on Audible if you have credits. I usually do with my coaching program, I'll do a 7-day reset with my clients for their first week. And just changing the time of day that you eat foods will help decrease inflammation. Sometimes people lose a whole size in a week if they follow it. Long-term, things like carpal tunnel start to go away. A lot of inflammatory joint pains start to go away. Rashes, like eczema, psoriasis, dandruff. What else have my patients told me? But it's even without exercise, like like my sister did this when I was first starting out. And she's like, wow, I lost a whole pant size. I didn't even exercise. I wish I would have exercised, So that's one way to help, right? Even though I said diet's only 30%. So let's talk about the gut-brain axis because it's really important. And, there's more attention given to the microbiome, but I just want to touch upon it. So the gut-brain axis, this is how your brain and your stomach talk to each other. This is a good display of the vagus nerve. That's it comes from, we have cranial nerves. And these cranial nerves basically do all the functions we need to stay alive in combination with the cerebellum, the animal part of the brain. So,
sorry, just real quick, sorry to interrupt. Are you sharing a screen?
Yeah.
Can everyone see the screen? Okay, then maybe it's just me. Sorry about that. Okay.
No, it's okay. I hope you can see it. Okay, so the way God designed us here, then we have like our brain up here. This is what differentiates us from animals, right? It gives us all these other things. But we have this. So you may have heard like your stomach is your second brain. It functions independently. And then we have your heart. Your heart also has its own system. And I want to talk about I want to bring about the point that the microbiome is really important. So when I talk about the 7X method, I talk about thinking about eating to nourish your microbiome. You know, I talk about nutrition in my coaching class. I don't, you know, I'm like, forget about like what you're craving or eating that birthday cake that looks so good. Like it's think about, I've got to take care of my microbiome because my microbiome talks to my brain and I can't optimize my life if I'm not paying attention to these little guys. So what we found out is we actually have like 40 trillion bacteria cells and only 20 trillion human cells. So we have twice as many bacteria cells as human cells. The bacteria, of course, are smaller and they don't have the functions of the human cells, but just that sheer number will give you an idea of like the impact we have, right? And they play a part in circadian rhythm and cell signaling. So it's really important. So let's think, what destroys and what supports the microbiome, right? So we know what destroys it. Antibiotics, duh. Anybody who's had antibiotics, you know, you struggle with like stomach aches, diarrhea, thrush, vaginal candidiasis. Like, you know, we know antibiotics are rough. Also pesticides. So if you think about if you're eating in restaurants and not preparing organic food at home, you're getting all these pesticides, and those pesticides are meant to kill bugs, right? And so if they're killing bugs on the plants, they're also killing bugs in your gut. Alcohol. Listen, I had a couple glasses of wine the other night. I'm not saying screaming perfection, but at the same time, I also have alcohol in my bathroom to disinfect because I know that alcohol is going to kill germs when I need it, right? So, you know, moderation or elimination if you can. And then also I want to talk about Splenda. So Splenda is sucralose. It's a sucrose sugar atom that at the molecular level, it has an added hydrogen atom on it. Splenda is still in a lot of beverages. Like I went to GNC to try to get a snack one time and everything had sucralose in it. You know, when I was in my pre-med courses, my organic chemistry teacher told me that Splenda was discovered as a byproduct of pesticides and your body doesn't break it down. It's kind of like a trans fat. It's like a trans sugar and your body can't break it down. It comes out in your poop, like sweet poop. And so that's what I found out. And I was like, oh my God, I was using Splenda all the time. I threw it away. But now we know it can destroy up to 50% of your microbiome. And there's so many beverages and sports drinks and collagen drinks and all kinds of stuff that still have this in it. So just pay attention. Sucralose is also something that destroys it. Of course, what supports microbiome? Obviously not eating pesticide foods, having, you know, kimchi and kombucha. And we have prebiotics. So you don't have to take necessarily a prebiotic supplement, but you can Google a list of prebiotic foods and try to incorporate them. I love dandelion leaves. I throw them in my smoothies or drinks or whatever. The good thing about dandelion, I mean, I don't know, I get them at Whole Foods. I don't know if you can get them at your grocery store, but dandelion leaves are also a potassium sparing diuretic. So when we are in our 40s, 50s, and we're feeling bloated, that will also help pull out some of the water, but it won't cause an imbalance between your potassium, magnesium, and sodium. So I love dandelion for that. So we have prebiotic, probiotics. You know, you're familiar with probiotics. Those are like in your kefir and your fermented foods or in supplements. And then we also have postbiotics. So we don't really talk about postbiotics too much. Those would be the short chain fatty acids that are created in the colon. Those are acetate, propionate, and butyrate. You don't need to take that as a supplement. In my book, The 7X Method, I talk about that. Those are in the orange group. Those are foods in the orange group, like beans, lentils, legumes. Those will create short chain fatty acids. So you don't have to take a bunch of freaking supplements. You can actually just look at, I mean, because it's like people are just like on supplement overload. You know, just you can get these things naturally in your diet. You just need to be, you know, you just need to be aware. So as we know, we want to have, if you have a leaky stomach, if you have leaky gut, and that's like when undigested food particles get put into your bloodstream, causing inflammation. If you have leaky gut, you also have leaky brain. And if you don't eat well and you're having depression, like depression, of course, we know there's genetic factors, but if you're not exercising and if you're not eating well, you're not giving yourself a chance. So there's definitely a role in that. And we know that our mental health is affected when we are going through our second puberty, right? These fluctuating hormones cause fluctuating brain chemistry levels. So the other thing I wanted to touch upon, and depending on what rabbit holes you've gone down and what your social media algorithm is, you may have seen some things about vagus nerve stimulators, the vagus nerve interaction. So if this happens, okay. So our vagus nerve gets kind of out of whack when we go through chronic stress. So a chronic stress response, think about that nasty divorce or custody battle. I mean, God, I've had friends that have had to empty their entire life savings just to keep custody of their kid because their ex-husband made something up to the courts. And it's like, there's just some, not to mention abuse. I mean, there's been some really toxic things that have gone on. You could have a chronic stress response from, abuse from anywhere, even just, a boss that creates a hostile work environment. Or I had a chronic stress response working in COVID ICU. I started getting anxiety. I recognized that my hormones dropped, my cortisol was through the roof. I was getting palpitations. I felt like I was going to faint. And I was like, okay, well, I think I need to make a career change, So all these things, what these things will do, this chronic stress response will disrupt this gut-brain axis. It'll disrupt your body's ability to assimilate nutrients. Muy importante. Okay, so I wrote this book. I wrote this paper on one of my clients. It's called Case Report. So utilization of urinary metabolite, neurotransmitter metabolite testing and natural supplements in the management of disordered eating. So what we had here was one of my patients, she had a 20-year history of eating disorders, ADHD, depression, OCD, like the whole nine. And in my coaching program, one of the things we do is a urine test of the brain chemicals. And we did a before and after. And like the before, everything was either super high or super low. And I was like, girl, I don't even know how you get out of bed in the morning. Like, so we just really slammed on the nutrients. So what I've listed here, we have serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, epinephrine, GABA, and glutamate. So each one of these very important brain chemicals, they require an amino acid like tryptophan, tyrosine, and then the dopamine converts into norepinephrine and epinephrine, but you need all of these cofactors. So if you have a methylation issue with one of your methylation genes, you may not have enough methyl tetrahydrofolate, right? The MTHFR gene. Or you may not be able to make enough S-adenosylmethionine. Like you may have some genetic components and you may have some nutritional deficiencies. And so what we do is we look at the levels and we just super dose these, pharmaceutical grade nutraceuticals, like things that are actually like, I don't know what's on Amazon. Is it really what's on the label in the pill? Like, who knows, right? So, you get good quality stuff. And we tested her before and after. She was able to raise her BMI from 17 to almost 19, which was huge. Like she was very frail. But it's just, you can make big changes using supplements. And, she stopped taking, what's it called? Adderall for her ADHD. That's the last thing that somebody with an eating disorder needs. And, she just told me that within 2 weeks, she felt like a totally different person. Her husband said he didn't feel like he was walking around on eggshells. Before the intervention, she would have a hard time getting off the couch after 4:30 p.m., trouble taking care of her toddler. So that's just the importance of nutrition with brain health. We talked about it, but these are there's actual protocols for each brain chemical. And here's one of my favorite papers is by Dr. Alessio Fasano. He's like a father of functional medicine. He's on the board of like 5 different hospitals. Here, I think in Mass General, the pediatrics, like he's a genius. So he wrote this paper called All Disease Begins in the Leaky Gut. Leaky butt. Oh my God. All disease begins in the leaky gut. And this talks about intestinal permeability that's caused by gluten. So what does this mean? This means nutrients don't absorb in a dysbiotic environment. So if your gut lining is inflamed, it can't do what it needs to do and assimilate the vitamins and minerals. So, I've heard this before. Like, I'm taking 10,000 IU a day of vitamin D, and my vitamin D levels are still low. What's going on? Well, your stomach's inflamed and it's not being absorbed. So when you have this inflamed gut, it leads to a breakdown in oral tolerance. What does that mean? That means that you get food sensitivities, food allergies. Like, I don't know, like going out to lunch with a group of friends now compared to 20 years ago. Like before, it was like, yeah, I'll just eat that. Now it's like, well, I can't have this. Every person's like, I can't eat that. I can't, like, what is wrong? Like, seriously, right? And one of the main things that this paper talks about is gluten. Gluten is the protein, actually gliadin, because all grains have glutens. Glutens are just proteins. But they talk about gluten or gliadin being the protein in wheat, barley, and rye. So this particular protein activates something called zonulin. This scientist, Dr. Alessio Fasano, discovered this molecule called zonulin. Well, zonulin's also triggered in chronic stress responses. So athletes who are training like triathlons, Tour de France, they will actually have the presence of this also zonulin. So the high stress will also cause this dysbiotic environment, just as a sidebar. But most of us are not pro athletes. Zonulin opens up these channels in your gut lining, and it causes these undigested food particles to leak into your bloodstream. This will cause an immune response in every person every time, not just people with celiac disease. Oftentimes, people will have a cross reaction with dairy, this casein, right? So there's like A1 and A2 milk. You may have seen those things. I just try to tell people, listen, avoid dairy for 6 months, get your body back on track, stop the inflammation. Gluten is linked with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, ankylosing spondylosis, glioma. Okay, glioma is brain tumors. The ankylosing spondylosis, that's when bones in your low back usually, but any part of the spine start getting inflamed and start fusing together. It's an awful autoimmune disease of the spine. Insulin resistance. So they think gluten is actually contributing to this whole like prediabetes insulin resistance problem that we have. ADHD, autism, chronic fatigue syndrome, colitis, inflammation of the colon, hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol, type 1 diabetes, schizophrenia, obesity, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So this doctor, who's a pretty smart guy, found out that gluten is linked to all this stuff. So, and the thing is, gluten antibodies will stay in your bloodstream for up to 3 weeks, and they can cause like arthritis in a lot of people. So that's why I say fix your diet. There's a bunch of gluten-free, dairy-free recipes in here that I put half the book as recipes. If you need a place to start, there's meal plans, there's grocery lists, just to be like, okay, well, how do I cook for my family? There's a whole bunch of recipes just to help you get on track. Step 2, exercise, cortisol, and sleep. So we talk about our circadian rhythm. I want to say, type in the text box, how many hours of sleep you're getting per night. Let's see, like, how are you guys doing? Like, how much sleep are you actually getting? And then how you exercise matters, especially when you're trying to recover. You're like a recovering workaholic, really stressed out, coming out of a divorce. You want to mimic your diurnal cortisol curve with regards to your intensity. So what does that mean? Oops. Here's a sample test. This is a saliva cortisol test. I use urine because urine is cleaner. I know it sounds ironic. Urine is cleaner than saliva because we drink and eat foods. When you're doing saliva testing, sometimes you can get like food particles. So it's just easier to do urine panels. But you get the gist of it. So in my coaching program, we do 5 urine samples. And the reason we do this is we want to capture the cortisol metabolites. And so we see here at 6 a.m., this person's waking up, and then 30 minutes later, we have the highest peak of the day of cortisol. And it's much, much, much like almost 10 times higher than it is at night. This is 9 p.m. This is when your pineal gland wants to release your melatonin for the night. So when we're exercising, we want to try to mimic that. We know that intense exercise will, when your heart rate's up, when you're pushing yourself, when your muscles are fatiguing, we know that that is causing a stress response. But that's a good stress response. Like there's good stress and bad stress, right? Getting stuck in traffic and yelling at cars or getting a little fender bender, that's bad stress. But working out and pushing your body to fatigue, making yourself sweat, that's good stress. And you want to try to do that in the morning when you're trying to recover, when you're trying to heal your adrenal glands. And why is this important? Well, after your ovaries retire in menopause, your adrenal glands are going to make the androgens that eventually convert into estrogen. So if you trash your adrenal glands, you're like, okay, well, whatever, I'll just get to it later. Well, you can't just do that because when your ovaries retire, you need your adrenal glands to produce androgen so they can convert to estrogen. You can't keep trashing them and making them produce cortisol all the time and not be able to produce the androgens that you need. You need testosterone. Testosterone converts into estrogen. So you need to, it all works together. You can't just look at one thing. Step 3, detox heavy metals, toxic estrogens, parasites, candida, and mold. So I just had a friend of mine, actually, he works with one of my supplement companies, call me today. He's like, I just was in the ER with pneumonia because of mold in my building. And I've been trying to tell him, I'm in Miami. So anytime an air conditioning pipe will burst because people don't take care of, they don't do the maintenance, you end up with mold behind the drywall. Or anytime you've had a toilet leak, you end up with mold underneath the vinyl. So, that's a real thing. And when you have mold, it affects your testosterone, not the production, but the actual utilization of your testosterone. So I said to him, I was like, you're going to have to detox pretty heavy for a few months because your testosterone's affected. He's like, yeah, I've had erectile dysfunction. I'm like, wow, poor thing. So you've got to detox these things. So yeah, if you know you have a toxic exposure, throw it in the text box and we can talk about it. I talk about heavy metals because we don't give enough attention to our teeth in this country. It's almost like it's cheaper to get a boob job than to take care of your dental health. Our priorities are really upside down in this country. And so I just want to bring attention that, your teeth, if you guys are in Vegas, there's a really good holistic dentist, Dr. Oh my God, he was amazing. Starts with an H, Dr. Hetzel, Hetzel, Dr. Hetzel in Las Vegas. Awesome holistic dentist. Each tooth is on a meridian for your organs. So what they found is women who have root canals, and they get breast cancer. A lot of times if you look over here, root canals and these back teeth, the tooth number, that's your wisdom tooth. But we have these back 2 teeth and they're on the meridian for your breast, your left breast and right breast. So if you have a root canal in any of these top 2 teeth, they've found that people with breast cancer, they'll often have root canals on that same side if they do have a root canal. So these toxins, it's also connected to your thyroid, right? So if you're having thyroid problems, and your stomach. So, and then the bottom teeth, we got your lungs. So I just want to bring attention. If you've got a root canal, you're going to have to extract that and try to go to a biological dentist. Dr. Hetzel, what he does is he uses ozone gas. So when you pull a tooth out, there's those vertical roots, but there's tons of horizontal roots too that are not you can't really see them. But when they put the ozone gas down there, that'll help clean out those horizontal roots and get you a more successful extraction, because essentially what a root canal does is it traps wet gangrene in your body, and it affects your body. So take that. I'm throwing a lot at you. I have a little a freebie book, and I can give you guys I can send Diane the PDF, or you can text book to me and I'll send it to you. I have it on my phone. This book called The Thin Formula, I wrote that just to help people detox. And by the way, I wrote both of these books before ChatGPT was invented. Like, I actually wrote them. So, and they have references. They're all evidence-based. There's a tons of references of research in the back. So if you want, you can text me here and I'll send you a book. And it just helps you think about detoxing your home, your makeup, your candles. It's just so many things. We live in such a toxic world, but what we don't realize is a lot of these fragrances are xenoestrogens. And these xenoestrogens, even if you're just inhaling them, they go straight to your brain, but your liver still has to detox them. And so your liver is like, what is this? Let me get it out. And it takes priority. Your liver is the only thing that will detox your hormones and process your hormones. So if you're constantly bombarding yourself with other things, you're not going to take care of your regular hormones. Your body's going to be like, oh, get this garbage out. Get this Glade out of me. Okay, step 4, keep your estrogen and progesterone in balance, right? You need to keep them high enough to prevent cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, metabolic syndrome, and certain cancers. So namely breast, colorectal, endometrial, and ovarian. Text in the text box if you've been prescribed a statin, Ozempic for blood sugar regulation, not weight loss, or metformin. I mean, Ozempic is originally for like pre-diabetes, diabetes. Super complicated, but I'm going to explain this graph to you. This is how your body works. Cholesterol is not your enemy. Originally, cholesterol, anything around 250 was fine. Then it was 225. Now that if it gets over 200, they're like, oh, got to get you a statin, got to get you hooked on this pharmaceutical. Well, I'll tell you a story. Like, these cardiologists are such specialists. They don't look at the whole picture. Like, I had a woman in her 80s come into my clinic. I used to have a clinic in Miami Beach, and she was in her 80s, and her total cholesterol was also in her 80s. And it should be like 200. And the cardiologist was so happy, like, oh God, your risk of heart attack is so reduced. I'm like, yeah, but you can't make hormones. So let me explain the way your body works. Cholesterol is not your enemy. You need here dietary fats. Dietary fats and vitamin B5, they combine with some enzymes and they make cholesterol. Your liver makes cholesterol, and you get circulating LDLs. The LDL, the bad cholesterol. No, you need bad cholesterol. Bad cholesterol combines with vitamin B5, pantothenic acid. Pantothenic acid comes from proteins, eggs, and it makes something called pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is our precursor. And depending what's going on in our life, it's either going to become progesterone, it's either going to become cortisol, or it's going to go down this way, become, DHEA, turn into androgens, testosterone, and eventually become estrogen. So you have to have enough dietary fat to turn into cholesterol, to turn into pregnenolone, to support your cortisol, to support all these androgens. Okay, so I just want to bring that to your attention. If your doctor's got you on statins to try to get you to have like 180 cholesterol level, let's take that on a case-by-case basis. It may not be the best thing for you. Step 5, balance your brain chemistry levels, but first you have to test your levels. So type in the text box if you've been prescribed an antidepressant or Xanax. I see Xanax all the time, Klonopin, benzodiazepines, trazodone to sleep for the serotonin. Your brain controls your entire body and every system in it. So how your brain is working is critical to know in order to impact your day-to-day health and well-being. 1 out of 6 Americans will get Alzheimer's dementia, and 2/3 of those cases are women. Well, why? recent studies have shown that decreasing estrogen levels will affect your brain function. These are some articles on NIH on how decreasing estrogen levels will affect your brain. So the first way is hypometabolism. Hypometabolism means like a slowing of, they measure this by glucose uptake. So the less glucose your brain is using, the slower your metabolism of your brain is, right? And with something, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? A little bit of brain atrophy. So this leads to decreased ATP production. ATP is the currency of energy. So you have little mitochondria. Mitochondria make ATP. Think of ATP as like a dollar, right? If you don't have dollars, you can't spend money, right? So your body makes it, your body makes ATP. So when you're having this decreased metabolism, you end up with decreased ATP and tissue atrophy. And this will lead to amyloid plaque accumulation. And this starts when a woman starts skipping periods. We had no idea. Yeah, okay, that's what I just said. We had no idea that this amyloid plaque accumulation starts when you start skipping your periods. You don't get diagnosed until you're 80, but the disease starts now. And that's wild. We're just figuring this out. So here are some brain scans of women, and you can see there's more activity in a younger brain. And as a woman ages, the activity decreases. There's less coloration here. This is a menopausal woman. This is premenopausal, right? This is perimenopausal. We see it's decreasing. But by menopause, it's like you can see how much less brain activity there is. So, and that this is pulled from this article. And you can see here, this is glucose utilization in different lobes of the brain. This is the control. This is premenopause, perimenopause, menopause, same thing. Premenopause, peri, and menopause. You can see that's a marked, that's a big difference, right? In brain activity. No wonder you have brain fog. Like there's literally less brain activity. So everything your body does in a day is represented in your urine, right? There's like no exceptions almost. You can use urine testing. It's more accurate than blood work for a lot of things, for the hormones, for those toxic estrogen metabolites, for the cortisol, for the cortisone and the cortisol metabolites. There isn't a blood test that will show you your brain chemistry or accurately reflect your stress hormones. Hormone levels affect your brain chemistry, especially when they're fluctuating. But, like I said, women are dismissed by their doctors. They're given Xanax or an SSRI like Prozac, and it's not treating the root cause. It's just, putting on a Band-Aid, and then you get more side effects. Meanwhile, there's a silent killer brewing in your brain and body. I know you feel overweight, depressed, anxious, you're tired, or you can't sleep. And it's like your new normal and, you need it to go away. You want to feel like yourself again. So with my 7X method biohacking bootcamp, I tell you, you'll lose 10 to 15 pounds in 10. I actually brought this more to 10 to 12 weeks. I've added a couple courses. You won't feel overwhelmed. You won't starve to death, and you won't waste more time. So here's what I've got for you guys. If you are interested, you can actually text me too if you want to book a clarity call and talk to me about it later. Same phone number, 786-7994-8773. So we do, so this is my Apple conversion. I can see, here's my learning curve going from going to Apple. Okay, so we get a master session with me. All right, so you'll get a one-on-one where we discuss everything, all your past test results, your medical history, surgical history, and all the test results that you get with me. So in the biohacking bootcamp, we do these labs. We do brain chemistry, we do sex hormones, stress hormones, thyroid, and heavy metals. So what you can't see in this graph is that these two charts are exactly the same. Difficulty concentrating, increased forgetfulness, foggy thinking, tearful, depression, mood swings. Same symptoms, but the top graph is what the color indicates what the neurotransmitter is affecting, what brain chemical, and the bottom one is what hormone. So the thing is, like, how do you know if it's hormones or brain chemistry? There's no way to know. And this is why I've been, since 2021, I've been testing this on all women. I was like, you've got to do your brain and you've got to do your sex hormones. Otherwise, we don't know which one to fix. Like, I don't, even with all the hundreds of women I've helped, I think, I'm like, oh yeah, man, her stress response, that's got to be it. It's got to be her hormones. And I get it back and it's all brain chemistry. Her hormones are okay. It surprises me every time. So, otherwise you can't, most doctors are like, oh yeah, it sounds like you're doing this. Let's just do that. Let's try, let's make you like a guinea pig. Like, no, I don't think if someone's struggling with a mental health illness, I just think it's, it's almost malpractice not to test their brain chemistry when this is available. I think Big Pharma just doesn't want us to know. So we do a 10-week biohacking mastermind. I do 10 to 12 weeks. So this mastermind's every Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern. And quite frankly, I let people come on. They can go to, if they want to listen for 6 months. I have some people that hang on for 6 months, because who knows what happens. Your mom gets sick. Your mom goes into a nursing home. Your kid gets sick, like life happens, and sometimes you have to skip a couple weeks. And then sometimes it's just a lot of change. So, I mean, every week we talk about something. We talk about thyroid. We talk about hormones. We talk about detoxing. We talk about it, and we open up for Q&A. We touch base, like, how's everybody doing? Where's your wins? Where's your struggles? Like, what can we do to, make things better? And then I have the on-demand video course library. So you're through the software, you can get ahead of the game. And like, there's different personalities, right? So you can go ahead and listen to it as many times as you want. You can listen to them before you come to the mastermind. You can go to the mastermind and be like, wow, that was a lot of information. I need to hear that again. And it's simple YouTube. You can listen to it while you're driving. You can listen to it while you're doing your chores with your earbuds, or while you're taking a walk. But it's there for you, and it's there for you for life. And then you have 24/7 access to me. I gave you guys my number. I actually use WhatsApp for once you get into the coaching program, just because it's encrypted and it's easier to share like videos and PDFs and documents like that. But this is critical. Like I had a woman come off of Cymbalta. She'd been on it for 10 years. She was in her 60s. She started when she was 50. And that's a tough drug because it affects your norepinephrine and your serotonin. So it makes it real difficult because you're affecting two different pathways. And we got her off of it, and she needed a lot of support for a couple of weeks, like almost daily, and that's okay. But a couple months later, an article came out where the FDA was recalling a big batch of this particular prescription because the level of carcinogenic whatever ingredients was too high. And so we're like, what is the level? Like 5%. So why is 5% not okay, but like 2% of carcinogenic ingredients is okay? Like, so does that mean all the pharmaceuticals have a certain allowable percentage of carcinogenic ingredients? Like, it's pretty wild, especially when they're saying now 1 out of 2 people gets cancer. Like, it's crazy. But anyway, so you have 24/7 access to me when you need it. You won't always need it, but you might. So then we get discounts on supplements. So you can what I want you to know here, if you learned anything today, is that you can stimulate your body to make more of its own hormones naturally. Like I said, with that paper that I wrote on the woman that had all those like mental health issues, the anorexic woman, like, if you take therapeutic doses of pharmaceutical grade vitamins, minerals, herbs, you can change your body. You don't have to take bioidentical hormones. Like, your body will process the hormones that it makes the way it's supposed to. And it doesn't, like, sometimes people get on BHRT and they feel great for like 3 months, but then all their peripheral receptors get saturated. They start sweating it out. It comes out in their saliva. Like, we can't do saliva testing on somebody who's done bioidentical hormone replacement therapy because they're made from plants, and your body starts pushing it out like differently than the hormones that it makes. And here's the other thing. Do I talk about it? No. So here's the other thing too. Once you take BHRT, if you have when I test people, if they have production of progesterone, it's just low. The production of testosterone, estrogen, it's just low. We can boost it up so they feel normal. Once you're on BHRT for a couple years, it cuts the feedback loop. So you have your pituitary gland in your brain. Your pituitary tells all of your other glands what to do. And when you take bioidentical hormones, this is what happens like with men with testosterone replacement therapy, with these young guys, like guys in the gym in their late 30s, early 40s. Yeah, I'm going to do TRT. And then they meet a woman and they want to have a baby and they've sterilized themselves. Because what happens is once you're doing these exogenous hormones, your pituitary is like, I guess I don't need to work anymore. And after, a year or two, it cuts that communication. So you don't have that natural feedback loop anymore. If you can start with natural herbs and stimulate your body to do its own thing, you're going to feel better because you're metabolizing your own hormones, not some plant-based bioidentical product. And you're keeping all your natural functions that God made. Like, God, it's a very intricate communication system in our body. And, God made us perfect. We just have a really toxic environment that has made it really hard. So here are, what do my clients say? This is Yadira. Sarah helped me look and feel amazing for my 40th birthday. I used to be so swollen and inflamed. She had a lot of fibroids and estrogen issues, toxic dietary stuff. I used to be swollen and inflamed. She helped me understand why I needed to change my diet, and I don't have the problems I used to. She was only 40, so we really only needed to take like one supplement, maybe two, and then we corrected everything with diet. Chrissy and Pinecrest. My whole life, I was a yo-yo dieter, but after 2 kids and weighing 200 pounds, I needed to make a change. My stomach feels so much better and I'm losing weight slowly. I feel like it's going to be permanent this time. We worked together for like 6 months and, she did, we did a lot of detoxing. She was full of toxins. Sandy in Kennebunk, Maine. She was in her early 60s. I felt like every other plan was a dead end until Dr. Sarah showed me how to adjust my hormones and brain chemicals. What a difference. She still pops on the masterminds here and there. She's a sweetheart. Vicky in Pittsburgh. This is from the beginning of the program when we were doing that 7-day reset with the 7X method. I just want to tell you that I weighed myself on Monday and again on Friday, and I was blown away. I was down 5.5 pounds in 5 days. That's what inflammation will do to you. I also work with guys. Here's Shy in Boca Raton. I had a drop in my testosterone after being in an accident because of the cortisol. Remember the graph I showed you? You have too much cortisol, you don't make enough sex hormones. Dr. Doyle recommended a few supplements that helped me get my testosterone levels even higher than before the accident. She's amazing. Dr. Pinella. I'm impressed by Sarah's depth of knowledge. She helped me out with a couple things, and now I refer my autoimmune patients to her. Chris in Palm Beach. Dr. Doyle showed me key changes to my diet that helped my autoimmune condition and recommended some supplements that help both the autoimmune condition and raise testosterone levels. I feel great. Jorge in Miami Beach. My doctor wanted to put me on TRT, but I didn't want to take it forever. Dr. Doyle explained to me how some lifestyle changes, like cutting alcohol every day, alcohol is estrogenic, and some lifestyle changes and a few different vitamins could help. I feel so much better. Sean in Louisville. After 8 weeks, I've lost 30 pounds with the 7X eating, supplements, and working out. So I know you feel like your body's betrayed you. I know I went through it. You're not crazy. It's just that you're not informed because nobody can tell you what's going on. Doctors aren't informed either. It's not your fault. Most doctors can't connect the dots between sex hormones, thyroid, methylation, neurotransmitters, DNA, vitamins, minerals, herbs, and detoxing. I've been there too. I was frustrated. But that's why I created this. 7X method biohacking bootcamp will connect all of the dots for you. You won't waste more time with this, even if you failed before. Change is easy when you have a roadmap and when you know that other people have been there and that you will be successful. Like that there's a roadmap for you to follow and you will be successful this time. So here's what's scary. According to a recent UK study, 1 out of 10 women quit their job or retired early because of mismanaged menopause symptoms like brain fog, like I mentioned earlier. This is the link to that. Children have grown up, and it would be ideal for, us to really thrive and start a consulting business or do what we, finally have time for ourselves. But, the brain fog just won't let them. So what's even more scary is that 1 out of 5 of those women will develop cardiovascular disease like a heart attack or stroke. So if your hormones aren't managed properly at the beginning of menopause, you're extremely at risk for becoming one of those 1 out of 5 women. It's 1 out of 4 men too. Same thing goes for them. It's 1 out of 4 men, 1 out of 5 women, and that's our hormones. So you don't realize what you don't know about your body. So if there's anything you can do is, take tests, get informed, know what's going on. And, I've been testing my hormones every year since I turned 40. And I had a thyroid problem. I was on thyroid medication for 2 years. I had to reverse the thyroid problem from a toxicity. Like, it is possible. But you got to keep an eye on yourself. If you're currently experiencing brain fog, anxiety, weight gain, depression, decreased libido, you're at risk for becoming one of those 10 women forced to retire early. Like, I want you to know that this is what's happening in your body, and you've got to change now. 1 out of 8 women will get breast cancer. 1 out of women will die of cardiovascular disease. You can't wait until the disease is already diagnosed by a conventional doctor, because they're trained to tell you something's wrong when they have a prescription for you. They're not trained to look at more narrow ranges to see, okay, disease process is starting, prevent. They're not into prevention. So there's a way for you to find out what's missing and, how to respond. You don't have to climb Mount Everest, because I already did that, right? So you can go 10 times faster. You have a choice. You can read my books. You can talk to your primary care doctor or maybe your OBGYN about getting some of these labs. And, you can try to do it yourself. You can try to go on Google and look on PubMed. And, it takes a couple years though, because I did it when I was putting this all together while I was getting certified in functional medicine, while I was sick with my own thyroid, when I was having major estrogen issues. You can join this boot camp and feel better in 10 weeks. It's a really good investment for yourself. So there's my number. There's my website. If you want to look, you can text me to call me if you want to talk about more, or if you've already done, like, I get people from Function Health. That's with Mark Hyman. The other one with Tony Robbins, Life Force. People are like, oh yeah, I've got all these tests, but I don't know what to do with them. Like, they sent me an email, but I'm like, I did all these tests, but I don't know what to do. Like, if that's your scenario, you can book like a 30-minute call with me. It's 30-minute Zoom. It's like a discovery Zoom. You can do that, and we can go over those tests. If you have like a bunch, we'll book like a whole hour. But yeah, there's some different options if you want to just browse around. But, whatever you do, don't sleep on it. We're just learning how important these sex hormones are for our brain. And I spent a lot of time working in hospitals, and like, the one thing is, like, people don't want to become a burden to their family, and you don't want to lose your freedoms, And so the thing I want to tell people is, like, you've got to start in your 40s. What you do in your 40s is going to determine your end of life, and it takes a comprehensive. You need somebody like Diane teaching you how to exercise and nutrition, but you also got to keep an eye on your hormones, because, man, we live in a toxic world, and it's you just got to keep an eye on it. So that's it. Thank you for the power hour. Now let's get to your questions.
That was great. Oh my goodness. I have so many questions as well, but I don't know. Denise, were you fielding the chat box over there as well?
Yes. So I have a few here. There's quite a few questions. Like Diane said, guys, we may not get to all of them just due to time, but jot down Dr. Doyle's number. We'll also include it in the replay. So if your question doesn't get answered here, you can still get it answered. So one of the questions was around blood work. What type of blood work is needed to identify leaky gut? Or is there something specific other than blood work?
Okay. So yeah, we generally look for inflammatory markers. Like, I mean, honestly, if you just, I don't even want to tell you to spend money on testing for that. if your stomach doesn't feel good when you eat foods, then you have a problem. Like, I would rather you maybe spend money on an allergy test. Like, I would rather have you go through the 7X method and clean up your diet, because sometimes it's not exactly the food, but it's the time of day that you eat the food. Like, I totally cheat. Like, I'll just say, so I met this guy that was like a shaman. I learned this from a healing center in Central America. It's been like 50 years. And, the way I used to eat was I would eat carbs in the morning with breakfast, maybe some protein at lunch, and then I'll have a salad at dinner because I didn't want to get fat. And, he was like, wow, you must have a hard time sleeping. And I was like, yeah, and I have heartburn every night. And so just changing the time of day that I eat things, taking carbs from the morning and having a small serving of carbs at dinner. He's like, carbs calm you and they get your nervous system ready for sleep. And I was like, isn't that going to make me fat eating carbs at night? And he's like, well, you don't eat a bunch. You just eat a little bit. There's no essential carbohydrates. There's essential nutrients. There's essential amino acids. There's no such thing as like essential carbs. So, I'm not saying completely cut them out. You don't have to go keto, but just switching around the time of day that you eat things will probably get rid of your heartburn, probably help you sleep better. And then if you're still having issues, there is a really expensive food allergy test. There's a ton of different food allergy tests, but the one that I like is from a company called Infinite Labs. And what they do differently is they look for the complement to the antigen. So most allergy tests, they'll, like, if you go to a doctor, they're going to do blood work and they're check for IgE. Well, you don't need a test for that because that's anaphylactic stuff. Like, if you start sneezing, if you eat something, here's a real rudimentary thing. If you eat something, you can take your pulse, right here, right below your thumb. While you're sitting, it should be 70 beats a minute. If you take your pulse after eating something and it's like 90 beats a minute or more, you have an allergy. That's an IgE reaction. You don't need to pay for a test for that. Okay. So you can find that. Yeah. So, but I like this other one that does a complement to the antigens. These are C3, C4 biomarkers, and it's the only food allergy test I know. It's going to cost like $500, but it's going to capture things that no other test is going to have capture. So when I talked about that paper by Alessio Fasano and the breakdown of oral tolerance, some of these food sensitivities, they're not mediated by IgG or IG4 antigens like we're used to. They're mediated by the complement, the C4 and C3, which can cause a 10,000 time reaction. So I know that I am anaphylactic to mushrooms. And I didn't know that I was really sick with soy, but this antigen test captured a whole bunch of things I had no idea I was allergic to. So that's what I would do. Follow the 7X method. And if that's still not better, then find something that is causing a reaction, then not a blood work.
Okay, that's great.
Amazing.
So the next question, Christina asks, how would we know if we have mold in our house? She's had a few leaks, but not sure if there's mold behind the walls. And if there were, how do you go about getting rid of it?
Oh, it's so expensive. So there's a lot of different mold tests you can do. If you go on Amazon or you go to Home Depot or whatever, the home goods store, there's a test with a little Petri dish. You take the Petri dish and you put the little mold growth factor. You follow the instructions. If it grows mold, you can send it into a lab. Then you have active spores in that room. If you do it in your bedroom, do it in your bathroom, do it in your kitchen. If it grows mold, you can send it off to the lab and see what type of mold spore it is. And then if that comes back present, don't waste your money. There's like mold tests that like they come in and they suck in a bunch of air from the room. Those are not the most accurate. What you would want to do is whatever the room, the target is, you have to take like a sample of the drywall and go back that way. That's the most effective way. And then if that's the case, it's one of the most expensive things. You got to rip out all the drywall. That you can get a state certified mold inspector. Yeah, that's the best thing to do. Call one of them, but don't waste your money on these air quality tests. They're like $300-400. They're inconclusive. Go get the $10 one from Amazon or Home Depot. And then if you mail it in, it's like $80 for the lab to analyze.
That's easy.
Great information. Yeah, yeah. So someone asked, what if you don't want to lose any weight, but you want to clean up the other aspects of your brain and body health?
Yeah, great question. You can always lose inflammation that you may not know you have. But yeah, you can definitely same thing. You can still do like I didn't really lose weight doing the 7X method. I lost weight fixing my thyroid. But you can still take the test and like screen for the toxic estrogens that you can get from the urine metabolites. There isn't a blood test for that. So if you have like breast cancer, endometrial cancer, any kind of like colorectal cancer, if you have that in your family, but you don't have the BRCA gene, you haven't, well, maybe you've done genetic testing, maybe not. If you don't have the genes present for these cancers, but these cancers still run in your family, it's likely that you have a genetic predisposition not to be able to metabolize estrogens. And with all the xenoestrogens in our environment, from like detergents and candles and alcohol and perfume and all that stuff, that may be what your body's struggling with. So you can still test and then take the supplement protocols and bring things into balance and start detoxing some of these estrogens.
Mm.
So, Dr. Sarah, would you say it's safe to say that fixing all of this, like hormones, is not the reason, or the reason you should fix all of this is not to lose weight, but losing weight could be a result of getting all of this fixed, right? So
Yeah,
just
I
because you
mean,
fix it doesn't mean you're going to lose weight, but it could be a result. It could be what's keeping you from losing weight.
yeah, that's a good way to say that. I mean, you should do it because you don't want Alzheimer's, because you don't want to have a stroke, because you know you don't want can't like you should do it for that. You should do it
Right.
because you want to be able to keep working into your 70s. You know, you don't want to have to retire early because you can't do your job. You know, you should do it for
Exactly.
that reason. And if if hormone imbalances is why you're overweight, then that will help. If parasites are why you're overweight, doing the parasite cleanse will help you lose the weight. It's, you know, we got to get to the root cause to fix what you need.
Exactly.
One other question that came in that we'll do like two more questions. We want to be respectful of your time. Which I think this one's a good one, is how high can my cholesterol be before I start to be concerned?
Okay, so cholesterol gets elevated if you have, like, if you're doing a cleanse sometimes, or if you have a toxin, or if you're inflamed, your cholesterol will go up. So cholesterol is a sign of inflammation, and you need to look at the root cause of the inflammation. So, you know, I'd say like if it gets over 250, 260, then we need to really, then we can start being concerned. If you have like 500 or 600 cholesterol levels, that's somebody who should be on a statin.
Mm.
That's a genetic issue. That's something within, they look at like the ApoE. Like there's people who get heart surgery at age 50, those people generally have like the genetic issues. But like for most of us, if it's like over 225, 230, 250, there's probably like, and when you're doing a cleanse, like if you're parasite cleansing, your cholesterol is going to go up, because the LDL is like a little garbage truck and it helps pull crap out of your body.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. And then we'll make this the last one.
I'm fine. I'm fine to like, I mean, I can go 15 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. I'm vegan, not for weight loss, but for other reasons. Does the 7X method work with vegans?
Well, if your blood type is like a blood type A, you might be able to survive. But if you're a blood type O and a vegan, you're gonna have a really hard time with your hormones. A lot of times vegans don't get because you need leucine to build muscle, and it's really hard to be vegan and have healthy hormones long term. A lot of vegans, I know that you may have ethical reasons or, you know, or whatnot, but you know, we have 4 different blood types. American Red Cross says, I think around 35% people, you have to look at the quote, but it's like 40 to 45% of Americans are blood type O. Those were the universal donor. Those people, they need more of a paleo diet. Vegan will absolutely be horrible for somebody with blood type O. The blood type A can be more can be more pescatarian, vegetarian, and that's about 35 to 40% Americans. You might be able to get away with it. And yeah, you can, in the 7X method, there's ways, it explains everything. I break everything down for the foods and your blood type, A, B, and O.
Okay. Here's another really good one. What if your markers are non-existent, like no testosterone, really low estrogen? Can you still raise your hormones naturally if you had a hysterectomy 10 years ago?
Oh man, you may need BHRT.
Hmm.
Or if you have, yeah, if you've had a total hysterectomy, I've done it. I've helped people, but it's hard to, it's like a 50-50 shot. Like I've had some post-cancer patients. It just takes a lot of work with the adrenal glands. And but in the end, you can try natural, but there's like a 50-50 shot, I'll be honest.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, if you're lacking, some of the important organs that
You still,
produce
yeah, you
those.
still have adrenal glands. So here's what happens. Your adrenal glands make testosterone, and then that converts into estrogen. So you
Gotcha.
can do it, but if you've are just gone, like if you've just had chemo radiation, it takes like 5 years to recover from cancer and those treatments.
Mm,
And so if you've had a hysterectomy, and like I have a patient with that, and it's really challenging. I'll be honest, but it just depends on the whole picture, the whole person.
gotcha. More things involved there. Okay, is PQQ worth taking? I'm not quite sure what that is.
Yeah, that's good. That's for your mitochondrial health.
Mm,
Absolutely.
okay. Anything that I miss, Denise? I'm just kind of skimming
There's
right
one
back
here that
through.
I wanted to look at. It says to get an accurate number for cortisol, do you recommend more than one sample?
Yes. So that's why we do that diurnal 5 sample pattern. So when you wake up, immediately you wake up, it should be one level. And then when you have a cortisol awakening response, and it should be like 20 times what it is at nighttime. So that's why with the urine panel, we do a 5 sample. Going to Quest or LabCorp and getting a blood test is completely useless. Don't waste your time or your blood.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. And then just one last question here. I think it was directly to you, Dr. Sarah. Are you doing bioidentical? I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, BHRT, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. No, I don't. There's I'll refer them out to other people. I try to get everybody to do everything naturally first. Just give it a good shot for 6 months. And most people feel there's no side effects when you do it naturally and your body feels better. Then, I mean, I had a clinic in the old Canyon Ranch in Miami Beach, and there was another functional medicine doctor that did blood work and BHRT. And so I would get all of the patients that felt like crap. They'd be like, I feel awful. I feel sick. I can't sleep. My boobs hurt. I feel worse than without it. So, it doesn't always work for everybody. But then, I had some clients that didn't respond, or I just had like people who just like, I'm not going to take supplements. I just won't. I don't take vitamins. I'm not compliant. It's not going to work for me. And I'm fine. Go shoot up testosterone, like mostly men. Like, go ahead, go to get the BHRT, go shoot up your testosterone, whatever, So different things work for different people.
Got it. Can you speak a little bit more on the exercise and cortisol correlation there? I know that was something that somebody else asked, and I wanted to ask as well, just if there's a recommended time based on cortisol levels that you're finding for women, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have that big burst of cortisol in the morning. So we want to try to do, like, if you're going to do CrossFit, you're going to do something that really brings your heart rate up, like high intensity or interval training, or even good resistance training. It's better done in the morning. If you challenge yourself really hard after dinner, it's going to disrupt your sleep cycle. So you have 90-minute sleep cycles where you go through 4 different sleep phases. And you don't if you only sleep like 5-6 hours, you don't remember any of your dreams because you don't have them, because you don't get into REM sleep. So we have 2 phases. The first 2 phases are non-deep sleep. Then you get deep sleep where your body recovers. And then the 4th phase is the REM sleep. That's where your brain actually recovers. And that's where you have dreams that you remember. And you usually don't get them until you get more than like 7, you get past 6 hours of sleep. So, what was that? Yeah. So does that help? It's real important.
In the morning is basically the best time to get your exercise in if you're pushing yourself in any kind of exercise.
If you do real heavy stuff at night and raise your cortisol at night, you disrupt the sleep and you don't get the deep sleep that restores your body, and you'll end up in a total sympathetic response. So what they've done is they've done like heart monitors on people that check actual heart rate variability. and you stay in a sympathetic fight or flight response from the cortisol, from the high exercise when you do it before bed or at night after dinner. Whereas like if you do it in the morning, you can get into the parasympathetic resting and digesting at night and get your deep sleep. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like I'll be switching up my exercise time. Darn
Yeah, I
it.
mean, if you're gonna do yoga, like, well, you can't reprogram your. So the main thing is your adrenal glands are gonna take over when your ovaries retire, right? You need to be able to give your adrenal glands the ability to make the androgens you need that are gonna convert into estrogen. So if you are, it's important to try to mimic that and allow them take care of the adrenal glands instead of pushing them into a pattern that they don't want to be in biologically. Like they have a circadian pattern. That's what the 7X method is all about, circadian stuff. We're a little bit behind. They've been using it has a lot to do with their, you can't fight their circadian rhythm. Like the sun and the moon are always going to do their thing. We can't fight it. And our organs respond to that. Our organs and systems have their own circadian rhythms. So when we push them outside of where they want to be, then that affects, there's downstream effects to everything. So if you can't recalibrate your adrenal glands if you're doing yoga in the morning, do your yoga, do your Pilates at night. I'm not saying cut. If you only have time to exercise in the morning and you still want to do Pilates, cool, do it like once or twice a week, but then do something that's more aggressive, that's going to cause more of a cortisol response in the morning so that you can nourish your body's desired rhythm.
Makes sense with the sleeping and waking patterns. Okay. Well, that I think we'll end there. That was fantastic. And give us a little bit more info. I know your boot camp is it constantly enrolling? Is it enrolling at a certain time? If anyone's interested in where we can find you more information. And of course, I'll send everything in the replay and then show notes as well, because this will be a podcast for sure.
Oh, great. Yeah. It's a rolling start. You can start whenever. This week we're wrapping up women's hormones, and then the next 2 weeks we're off because it's Christmas and New Year's, and then we start back again in January.
Okay. Fantastic. And they can find you. What's your website, social media handles, all that great stuff?
Yeah, right here. That's my website, drsarahjoel.com. My Instagram is 7X Method. If you're not on Instagram, it's on YouTube too. I post a lot of clips and stuff on there if you want to see me. But yeah, you can just text that too. Text that number. That's my work phone number.
Okay, perfect. I'll link all that up so everybody can reach out to you. Well, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I mean, my brain is like on fire now with all this information. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole.
I'm on fire too.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for showing up today for yourselves. And, knowledge is power. So don't let just go in one ear and out the other. Take some steps, take some action steps to improve, your health. We'll link up, obviously all the goodies that you gave us as resources. So that way you guys have access to that as well. So
thanks so much, everybody. Yeah. Take care of yourself, share with your friends, help your friends. We got to help women live better.
Absolutely. I'm here for it. All right. You guys have a beautiful Sunday, and we will see you on the internet, of course. All right. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Doyle.
Bye.
Bye.